Hi, welcome back. If you don't know me, my name's Newman, and today we're going to do a bit of a tour of my indoor and outdoor plants, the ones that I really don't show a lot of. Anyway, stay tuned. Okay, here I am. Alright, I'm going to start off with Calatheas. Calathea number 1. This is Calathea makoyana. This is a thirsty plant. I've had this for about 4 or 5 years now. I've repotted it once. It typically grows in a clump. Sends out a lot of new growth during the warmer parts of the season. This particular plant doesn't like high temperatures, so anything that goes over 95 Fahrenheit, you want to move it to a cooler place in your house. Even if it isn't getting enough light and it's much cooler, that would be ideal for it. It doesn't need a lot of light at all. Actually, these are far away from any direct sunlight at all. And if it happens to get direct sunlight, it'll burn it, even in the winter. So it's a few feet away from a window. I water it with tap water that's filtered. So the filter has, it's an attachment with a combination of a sponge and charcoal, the kind of charcoal you would put in fish tank filters. So it still contains a few minerals in the tap water, in the faucet. And then I just add a little fertilizer and magnesium lime about 3 times a year. I just add it into the water. And this thing is just growing magnificently. My next Calathea is this one here. And this one's Calathea burl marks. That's right. After the repot, it produced some leaves that have some brown tips. Although I put this down to heat stress, because during the summertime it can get very hot. I'm going to keep my Calatheas cool. Let me show you one example of what I mean. They're getting a bit harder to find because there's not so many. But you can see here, right? See that brownie? Now, the plant's definitely not overwatered and it's not under. So they like to be kept just slightly moist. And whatever water is remaining in the tray, I just tip it out. So this is your kind of stress that you're going to get. You're going to get brown tips and leaves. If you get that kind of conditions with your leaves, this browning and getting all crunchy, that's probably heat. If it's the winter time and it's nice ambient temperatures in the 20s and it's still getting brown leaves, then it could be overwatering, and usually overwatering is yellowing too. So there's no yellowing in here, and we know that that's just heat. But as it goes for this plant, I've been doing really well with it. I love it because it's got those nice purpley undersides of the leaves, and it's because it's a prayer plant. Remember, the prayer plant family, they do move their leaves during night and day. And for fertilizer, I use an all-purpose fertilizer that already has magnesium and calcium in it, and all the other nutrients like nitrogen, potassium, and phosphorus. Because you definitely don't want to miss your magnesium, because they can offset the pH of the potting media. And a good way to check your potting media is just to give it a good smell. And if it just smells almost like nothing, you can't smell anything, then it's fresh. But if it stinks, you know you got a problem, right? Okay, stay tuned, because next up I'm going to show you some more beautiful plants. Okay, here I am back again for the next plant. There it is. Coelogyne intermedia. This is native to India, Burma, and parts of Vietnam and Thailand. It's a high altitude growing orchid, so it likes cool temperatures. If temperatures get over 30 degrees, it should be fine as long as it gets lots of cool airflow. And at that time, if you have to avoid heat altogether and it's very shady and there's no direct sun at all, then you're better to go for that option, because definitely does not like high temperatures. It will burn it and eventually kill it, so you want to keep it on the cool side. Its best temperatures are around 20 to 25. Likes a dip in the night temperatures. As you can see, this one it will flower probably in the springtime. I've been still giving it water. I keep it quite moist because it's a big drinker, likes to drink a lot. Same general care as the Calathea. You want to give it a balanced fertilizer, making sure you get the magnesium in there. It's almost filled this pot actually, as you can see. So in the springtime I will repot this into another size up pot, into a chunky barky medium. It has beautiful white flowers in the spring that are fragrant, so that's a good thing. This tends to clump on top of itself with pseudobulbs, which are these big fat pieces here, and it tends to come out of the pot too, grow out of the pot. And if you want to break a clump like this into two pieces, then be aware that it could set back the flowering for a year or two. So another good option is just to slide it out of its pot, put it into a slightly bigger one, and then fill around it, and try not to disturb the root system. And if you need to propagate from it, the best way is just to wait until you get the orchid is starting to grow out of the pot and overhang it, and just cut that little piece off to propagate, because you definitely don't want to disturb your main plant too much, because it won't flower. It'll have to produce a new root system. I definitely don't recommend repotting this at any other time during the year, only just after flowering, when the new roots are starting to grow from the pseudobulbs, the new pseudobulbs. It'll start to produce new roots, and that's the best time to repot. If you repot it at any other time, it'll pack a sad, it'll sulk. A lot of things can happen to it. It can lose its health. So that's Coelogyne intermedia. The next one is this one, Peace Lily Domino. It also shows the same signs as the Calathea. You can see here you've got these brown chips. That's heat stress, because it only gets this during the hottest August months, July and August, and we can get temperatures outside they can 35, 36, even hotter. daily, and keeping the plant inside, you've got to get it right away from the windows. Keep it as cool as you can, even if the light is very low. I like this plant because of its neat variegations that it has. So you can have all sorts of different variegations. You can have a plain old green leaf, you can have something that's like this, right? You got light and dark, and you can have white stripes in it, just like this one here. This one's easy to look after. It likes the same kind of watering as the Calathea. When it starts to dry on the surface, I give it a good water till the water runs out into the tray here, because I keep them in a tray, and there's a little water remaining. I leave it there and it'll drink it up. Being a variegated plant, you can expect sometimes to get some pretty feeble or weak growth, because this is almost completely variegated. It lacks the chlorophyll, so don't expect it to get big leaves every time. You kind of want a leaf that's got a bit of both in it. The general care of it, well, you know, once again, when it gets dry, I water it. Well, it's in a very well drained potting mix that has quite a bit of pumice in it. And fertilizer includes magnesium, of course, a balanced liquid feed I use. And I tend to cut the strength down of the application of fertilizer right down to more than half. So it's pretty weak, and I do that with every watering to keep a nice healthy plant going. Yeah. Let me take you in for a closer look. Isn't it neat? You get all these different variegations. This is one of my favorite leaves, actually. And you can get this kind of variegation. This one is just straight out wide, so it's not going to grow to its full size. Alright, so stay tuned, because we have more coming up. Okay, here we are in the bedroom, and this is where I keep a lot of the Hoyas. And Hoyas like plenty of direct sun, but as you can see here, I've got this shade netting just to stop, just to dampen down the direct sun, because it is facing south. And the first up is, and what do you know, it's flowering, the Hoya Hindu rope. Now I love this because not only are the flowers beautiful to look at, nice waxy flowers, but also the fragrance. It's just like cocoa. You can see that peduncle, which is the base of the flower here, you can see the pedicel, and then the flowers attached to it. The whole pedicel, which is what I'm touching, and the flowers will fall off, but you will still have this fuzzy bit here, and that's called the peduncle, and it's going to keep that. So I'm going to point to it right here. This part just keeps getting longer and longer, and that's where it produces the flowers, so you don't want to cut that off. It has some nice lovely new growth here. Can you see it? Right there, you can see in the two leaves coming out. Let me take it down. So this plant has been with me for a number of years now. I wouldn't be surprised if it's 5 or more. Got a little bit discolored there, you can see. That was the direct sun that it had during the summer. as opposed to this much darker green. But the stress does it good. It likes to get some sun stress. Helps it to grow more compact. Definitely good. Don't overdo it though, don't burn it. But definitely it can take a lot of direct sun. And if you look inside here, you can see that this growing medium is slightly moist. So as it starts to dry out, I will water it again. The water runs freely down into the cache pot, which is full of big pumice stones that suck up any excess water. And I tend to just tip it over and drain it out. But if you're in the heat of summer, now the reason why I have cache pots, there's a reason. We get extremely hot summers. These plants dry out far too fast, and then they can lose quite a bit of their good growing root system that helps support the plant. So at that time, the excess water that goes down here and gets sucked up by the pumice stones just helps to give it a little bit more humidity and moisture, which helps the plant stay healthy. So that's why I have it. I don't actually keep any water in there at all, because it doesn't need it. However, if we look at Hoya bella, now there's one that has a cache pot that I do allow to have a little water. We're talking about half an inch of water. I water it from the top, goes into the cache pot. Once it's sucked it all up, I give it another water straight away. I don't hesitate to water this quite a lot. And as you can see, you have this nice healthy plant growing. Yeah. Not only is it growing, it is continuously producing buds. I'm going to get some focus, I hope. Can we focus on that? No, it doesn't want to. Down here we have another bud. And down here the flowers. Beautiful waxy flowers with a slight fragrance. It's a bit dusty here, so what I do is take it to the sink, take it to the faucet, and our faucet is just, the head on the faucet can be adjusted to run as a normal faucet, or so like a shower. So I just have it slightly warm and I give it a shower. So I shower all the leaves to get the dust off. I don't have any, in case you're wondering if I get two-spotted mite or anything like that, I don't have it. And the reason why I don't have it is that I'm convinced now that if you look after your plants well and they get a balanced nutrition, that you don't tend to get pests like that. They seem to get attracted to some plants that are suffering, or they got some kind of problem. Maybe they've dried out and they're starting to suffer. And I'm going to show you later on in my video, I'm going to show you my Hoya bellas that have been attacked by two-spotted mite. Now they only got that because I made a mistake with the culture. Let the plant dry out, you see. Then it got stressed, it started dropping leaves, and that's when they came in. Other than that, I don't get any, and if I do, I think the plant has a resistance against them and it fights them off, because I don't seem to get anything on a healthy plant, only plants that are stressed out. And right here is Hoya Sunrise, and I've got lots of this all over the house actually. I've propagated it that many times. This one has nice big peduncles there, see that? So it can flower again. This one has my favorite fragrance of all. It smells just like orchids, or probably even better. It's such a magnificent fragrance. Now this one's also in a cache pot. As you can see there on the surface, you got the salt build up. That's from the minerals in the liquid feed, because I liquid feed every time, but very mild application. To help with the pH, once again, you can get magnesium lime or dolomite lime, and you put about a teaspoon into the pot straight, and that will help with pH problems and also salt buildup. But another thing you can do is just to take your whole pot to the sink, give it a good flush out with water. And this plant is very healthy, as you can see. Over here, this one is Matuldi. Now, this one required a little bit more water than I thought, so what I did is I give it a cache pot. In the bottom, it collects water. So this is terracotta, and it's in a, once again, it's in a growing media that's a lot of it is bark and pumice, so there's no actual rotting organic matter so much. It's very hard, coarse bark and pumice, and it really likes that growing medium. If you put it in ordinary potting mix, you will at some point get rot, so you better to make sure that you plant it in an orchid mix, which is bark and pumice. And the cache pot, once again, is to collect water to keep the humidity, to make sure that the plant, if it requires any extra water, it can drink it. The cache pot comes about down to here, so that the plant produces roots coming out of the bottom of the terracotta pot that dangle down into the water, kind of like semi-hydro. Every second watering, which would be every 2 or 3 weeks, I will take this off and have a check underneath to see how it's going and flush out any old water down there. It's got some nice big peduncles. You can see one there. I'm expecting it to, it usually has one massive burst of flowers. And I'm telling you that this particular Hoya really exhausts itself with flowering, because it doesn't tend to produce flowers a few times a year. It's just one big outburst, and at that time you really need to keep the fertilizer up in your water. Don't increase the strength of it, just keep it as normal, and make sure that it has a cache pot, so if it needs to have a extra bit of water, it can drink it up, because it really does exhaust itself. And you can tell by that, because it stunts its growth and a lot of things like that, and it'll also have a little bit of leaf loss and also die back at the tips, and that usually happens when it does its big flowering show. So it's a real beautiful plant. I recommend it, especially those of you who like a splash on the leaves there. This one is Hoya carnosa Crimson Queen. It produced, I'm trying to focus, there you go, produced a nice peduncle there, and then it lost it. So bit of a disappointment, because it was about to flower and then it lost it. This particular one is a bit of a drinker, thirsty plant, so I tend to water it a little bit more than the others. It's in a cache pot. once it's drunk everything, I top it up a little bit more. In the winter time, I'm going to have to cut back, of course, because it won't drink as much. So that's just a matter of just keeping an eye on the reservoir down there. If it's not getting dry and the temperatures are getting cooler, then definitely don't put more water in it, only if it's drinking it up. I had a big plant of this, and it got root loss, and it also rotted, and I saved 2 little pieces, so I've ended up with a nice beautiful plant after a couple of years again. I keep it because of the variegation, but if I can get flowers, that would be great. As far as growing it, I'm doing fine. It's healthy. I really think that I could up the feed a little bit more, because it's growing but not enough. It gets outbursts of growth. Oh, in actual fact, if you can look right there, let me try to focus. You might see. Can you see it? That's a peduncle. So definitely Hoya Crimson Princess Queen, Hoya Crimson Queen could do with a little bit more fertilizer. But making sure that you do flush it, because it'll build up with salts. This one is a cutting of Hoya David Cumming. It has flowered many times. It was really reluctant to grow after I made cuttings of it, but it has come back and done much better. It has a need for drying out during the winter, which means that it gets very, very wrinkly and desiccated, but not unhealthy. I mean, it'll just get very wrinkled leaves, and as long as the leaves are not falling off, you're actually doing it a favor, because I noticed with this one is that it'll flower a lot, then it'll get to the point where it won't produce so many flowers anymore, and even if you water it, it won't grow so much. So it benefits from a kind of a dry winter rest. Probably water it once a month, and that's about it. And then during the springtime, you will be rewarded with a lot of flowers and some good new growth. But it's a nice Hoya to have. I like it. Over here, this is not a Hoya, but this is Peperomia Hope. Peperomia Hope's been growing really well. And why? Ever since I gave it its cash pot, it's done much better. Now, for some reason, if I leave any water in that cash pot, the very next week when I look in there, it'll have a few dropped leaves that have gone all brown and mushy. So I know that it doesn't like any excess water. However, it likes to be watered once it's dried out. Give it a good water and then get rid of the excess water. Keep it in a cash pot for a little humidity. Its roots are quite sensitive to overwatering, actually. It's got these big juicy leaves. This thing has grown so much. I mean, it's growing all the way down to here. I'm probably going to have to take cuttings off it soon, so I can grow one and give it away to somebody. But I love it. It's a nice plant, nice hanging plant. These 2 pieces here actually growing this year, and it's had a lot of growth from about here down. Next up is Syngonium Serrapegia woodii. You can have a little look in the pot there. Always gets bare on top, but that's just normal. Your main focus is how healthy your leaves are here, which you can see it's healthy, nice and healthy, nice and green. It's due for its haircut soon because it's hit the floor. So that time I just cut straight along. Easy to propagate. You always look for nodes. You want to look for the nodes that have the little bulbs on them. You can see there, right, where my thumb is. These little bulbs is where if it dangles or grows and touches the ground in nature, it sends roots out of here. That's a good place to do a cutting. This one's a little larger. See that? I like little reservoirs, little potatoes. How do you know when you need to repot this? Well, when the leaves start getting smaller, every time it puts out new leaves, but they don't grow to a good size like that, you know, it must need a repot. Being an indoor plant, I water it once a week. If I pick up the pot and it feels heavy and I look in it and it's still moist, then I definitely won't water it all, and I tend to cut the watering down quite a bit in winter. So these leaves will get a little wrinkly, but that's fine. That'll be its normal winter rest. And I've repotted it once, only once since having it for a few years, and I have propagated it too. The last one here is my fairy castle. So this is quite a big plant. Stays in here all year. It's growing really well. I water it once a week. So that means that when the growing soil has reached the point where it's starting to dry on the surface, then I give it another good watering. So you can say that it's kept a little under moist, like kind of moist. So I don't let it go bone dry before I water it again. It'll still have a little moisture, and the top surface will be dry, and it's growing really well there. Nice houseplant. Okay, so stay tuned because we're going to go to the next room. I'm going to let you have a look at this. This is Philodendron Brazil. This thing is massive. It's got those beautiful variegated leaves. That's my favorite, when it has halves. It's just full green. It grows in this room. That is a north facing window, so it's just bright light, but no direct sun at all. No sun comes through there, it's just the light. And we got one window right over here which does get some sunlight, but it doesn't reach. You can see that the plant is far away from any direct sun. If you do get direct sun on it, it'll burn the leaves. It doesn't require it. You could even have it further away from the window and it would still do perfectly well. I've repotted this once since having it. It's grown into this magnificent specimen of a plant. I love it. Care is easy, just like my other plants, same schedule. Watering schedules may vary, and I can't say you water it once a week, you water it twice a week, because it just depends on the weather And how you dictate that is you always go up to the top. Have a look in the growing media, right? If it's all dry on the top and the reservoir there is empty and it's dry, it'll need some water. If it's not drying out and it's still moist, definitely do not water it again. It doesn't like it. It just likes to be moist and to dry out a little bit in between. And in the winter time, much less, of course. This one here, I can actually pull it down because it's not that big, but this is one of my propagations of golden pothos, and it's growing really well there. Mind the leaf tip damage there, that's heat, because you can see all the new growth is fresh and green. I like my pothos. And we all get creative. How are we going to hang our pot plants? We got these pull down shutters, and then I've got this thick wire that you use for staking plant flowers, usually on orchids, and I bent it into this shape with a hook. And it goes down behind the shutter, so you can still pull it down and up, which brings it out to 15 centimeters out from the wall, so I can hang my plants. Anyway, let's just go to the next room. This room here, which we have this big. Actually, it needs a water soon because it's getting quite dry on the surface here, so I will water that today. This is a big pot with 3 plants of Phalaenopsis. You've got the 1, 2, 3 new leaves, another one. This is my big monster pothos that have been growing on a moss pole. I haven't had any issues, no problems with my moss pole. You can see that I have this bobble there. So you can see that when I made the moss pole attachment there, I left an extra bit of wire guard coming out so that it makes it easy to put this small bottle upside down. The bottle has a little hole punched in it and cotton rope pushed down through the hole so that it comes out the other side of the lid, so it's like a wick. So when you turn it upside down, the water just trickles out ever so slowly. Trickle, trickle, trickle. Can take an hour or more for it to gently trickle into the moss, and then the moss absorbs it. That's about the best way you can rehydrate your moss pole. You're going to stand there with a spray gun. It's torture. So do it that way, it's easier. A little bit of browning on the tips there. That's just the heat. Can't help it. Just have to bear with it. These leaves are monstrous. There's my hand, and of course it's grown even taller than the moss pole, so that means I'm going to have to make a cutting and give it away to a friend. Here's another golden pothos. I can take that down actually. There we go. Nice big one. Look at that. Anyone can propagate it. It's a piece of cake. It's easy. I just like how luscious it is. It's got fairly big leaves for a hanging one, and as long as you feed it, you will get quite large leaves, actually. Quite large. Yeah. Okay, we get to look at David Cumming Eye flowers, because this one has some right to there. Actually, these are buds. Can you see that? These are the buds on the peduncle, and then we have the flowers. There they are. They smell like cinnamon. And then again, there we go. Are you trying to focus? Camera loses focus as much as I do. Here's another one of the Hoya Sunrise that I did as a cutting. This thing is just taking off everywhere. Once again, if you fertilize, you get growth. Plenty of it. This is a Sansevieria that I took a cutting of that main plant that I showed you. It is going into this big monster of a thing, dangling down to the floor. It needs a haircut. This one is Philodendron Brazil that I took some cuttings from the other plant I showed you. Propagated it, now I've grown another plant. I've been looking for somebody that would like to have that. Here is another Hoya Sunrise that's grown into a nice big plant. A little dehydrated, needs to be repotted. Okay, now we're going to have a look finally at stressed. This could be awkward to show you, but we are going to try. We've got some webbing there. Which means those little two-spotted mites have not left. They're still there. And they are just attacking the stressed out Hoya Bella. But they leave the healthy ones alone. How do you know when you have them? Little red dots. Sometimes you can squash it on your fingers and you get a red residue on your fingers. You can see something red there, and you can see the whitening of the tissue. So they've been sucking. So I'm going to give it a spray once again with hydrogen peroxide and water. Keep it healthy, keep it growing. I should say bye-bye to these pretty soon as the plant gets back its health. Although they're running a little bit rampant there, I've got to address the problem. Down here there's a big, huge Sansevieria. The most common, you see these just as leaves with rhizomes, just laying there in baskets for cheap. And because it's cheap and everybody sees it all the time, you'll get a bit bored with it, but this is actually my favorite Sansevieria. It's the most common one. Okay, all these other plants here are actually orchids. They come in for the winter. We have a separate video of those. We did have this one flower here. This is Calathea Variegated. You want a Calathea that's as tough as nails. They can put up with a lot of heat, easy to cultivate, very leathery, tough leaves. You could grow this one in Texas, as long as you keep it underneath a tree or something in the shady area. It can put up with high temperatures. Low temperatures are its weak point, so if you're going to go under 17 Fahrenheit, well, no, not that cold. Once you hit freezing, you better bring them in way before then. Definitely no frost or anything for these guys, but otherwise they are super tough. They have a characteristic like bulbing at the bottom of the plant. You get these really round fleshy bulbs, hard tough canes that are quite thick. It's a nice plant to have. These are my Phalaenopsis here that I grow. They are in cache pots too, so it's one pot inside another. That's because of the high temperatures that we have during the summer, and they got to stay a little bit moist. This one is one that I repotted, and you can see it's got two nice green roots coming out. Which is great. It's got two new leaves. The remaining two leaves stayed with the plant, so I was real happy about that because it actually lost quite a few. It got stressed out from the heat, even though it was right away from a window, and I had a fan going, which is right there. It's in a very pumicey mix there, and it has a reservoir of water at the bottom. So the roots will be heading down there soon. It's making a nice recovery. Last plant to show you is my Miltonia. Miltonias are pretty tough orchids. This one is recommended. It has beautiful pansy looking flowers. Yellow and blue. They look like just like pansies. It's growing in bark here. I repotted it. I bought it online and I quickly repotted it. I had to cut the flowers off it because I wanted to concentrate on root growth. I won't be able to show it on the camera, but it is starting to produce roots very nicely in there. I water it a couple of times a week, and I keep it in here because during the summertime there was a little water left inside here that created humidity. They keep the plant happy. Yeah. Anyway, you're probably wondering what those are over there. Those are all the Stapelias. They come in for the winter. Stapelia unicornis and cuttings. I just keep the cuttings dry. Make sure you cut from a plump part of your Stapelia. You put it in a dry mix and you just leave it like that over winter, and slowly, little by little, it produces roots to become something like this. And this is Gigantea. You can see at the back there, there's a Hoya. Now there's not a lot of light over here at all, but they don't really require it during the winter. They don't grow. They just sit dormant, so that you just give it a little water once a month. It will not grow at all. It won't lose its color, anything. It'll just sit there perfectly in this state. Even root dieback won't really happen either. It'll keep its roots very well. So light isn't a big issue. We won't get any direct sun. It'll just get a little bright light. And then in the springtime, put it back out and it'll start growing again. Yeah, anyway. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed looking at my house plants, and I gave you some good advice there to grow yours a bit better. And that's all for this time. Stay tuned for more. We're going to have an update on my dendrobiums wintering outside, also preparing for the cacti. The cacti are going to have a little more of a harder winter rest than usual, because I'm going to try something out. Anyway, thanks for watching, and we'll see you back next time. And don't forget, looking after your plants is not a chore, it's part of your self-care. Until then, bye, see you.